Hello, House Hero fans and Wham fans, and welcome to Tuesday Night Live with the House Heroes. My name is Troy.
I'm Ryan.
And we're here every Tuesday at 9 p.m. to give you the latest information in the real estate world. If you like what we're talking about, please hit the like button. If you have any comments, we're very, we like to interact with our people, I should say. Not even.
Come on, Biden. You got to stick with us here, bro.
So yeah, comment with us. Just say hi, wave. Tonight we're talking about the electrical panel. One of the 5 things you need to know on every single home that you actually visit. If you're a homeowner out there, you need to know about your panel as well. We're going to talk about the electricity that's in all the different homes in the United States, as well as the panels, what to look for, what not to look for, what to upgrade, what should be upgraded, and what is a nightmare out there. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. So, just break it down a little bit deeper here. At the end of the day, what we're going to talk about does not excuse you from getting a professional home inspection when you're buying a house. You absolutely want a professional to go through the house, pick everything out in the attic, the crawl space. They understand code. They know something might look good to you, but it's not to code, and it's actually got health and safety issues. So what we're talking about today are things that you absolutely need to be looking at when you're walking around the house. Obviously you're walking through going, I'm going to rip down this wall and Chip and Joanna Gaines this and that, and put in this new kitchen. But if you got a budget and you go to open that kitchen and all of a sudden you got to put in a whole new electric system, replumb the whole house, next thing you know, you've got no money left for your kitchen. So there are certain telltale signs that you can see when you walk through that house, from the plumbing to the electrical to the roof, to your HVAC, air conditioner and forced air unit, and the foundation. There are telltale signs that you can see and that you should be looking for before you waste all that time, getting in that bidding war, getting your emotions all up, and then you're so happy you got it. You're, wow, popping champagne bottles. We got a house. And then you roll in, and then the deal killer just slams down on that inspection and goes, well, you need a new roof, and you need new electric, and you need new plumbing. And you're like, what happened? So these are the things you can be looking for. So you're not getting your hopes up. You're not spending $500-$600 on an inspection, $600-$700 on an appraisal, out all that money, just dropping on that roller coaster of life and hitting that dead bottom. So these are the 5 things that you're going to need to be looking at as we roll through here. So I actually want to do a couple shout outs, Troy, before we get rolling.
I want to say, Dad, hi, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate it. Adam, thank you for joining in and watching us. I know Min is going live on the other channel, so I know a lot of people here are saying hi to him as well. So who do you have over there, Ryan?
I just want to do a quick shout out. We got El Creeper 60. He's here. We got Christopher, Marcus, Guevara, and Jamie Cruz. What's up? Jonathan Perea. Haven't seen you in a while. Rita Salas. Good seeing you guys. My aunt, Marianne, is on here. That's awesome. Hi, Aunt Marianne. So, miss you.
Marianne and the Skipper, too?
That's it. So, Denise, Ricky, Valdan, good seeing you guys on here. Raphael, thanks for joining us.
That's awesome.
Tonight, we have so much information we're going to skip in the news.
Yeah, there you go. So we talked about the 5 things you need to know every time you go and look at a home. So if you're viewing a home right now, you're with your real estate agent, make sure your real estate agent actually touches on these 5 things. It's going to save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars when you actually get, submit an offer and get the offer accepted. So before you actually even submit that offer, you want to know going into it that what I want to offer is also predicated on one of these 5 things. And again, tonight we're touching on electrical.
Yep.
So Ryan, so let's go over, as we've gone in the last six months to a year, we've gone by and we take pictures of electric boxes and panels and outlets and stuff like that. We're here. We want to educate everyone out there on what we see and what to look for when you actually are looking for a home. This is also for first-time home buyers, also buyers that are homeowners that are there.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
can go check out your own panel and see where you're at. And this might give you a timeline of maybe when you need to upgrade it somewhere in the future, that what you really need for today's, needs.
Yep. And codes and standards are constantly up. They're changing and getting upgraded. And so maybe the house you're in, it was up to code when it was built in 1950, 60, 70, 80, 2010. Codes have changed since then. So if you're curious, I would actually recommend, hey, you've been in the home a while, go pay for a professional home inspection. If you don't know what to look for, there's a couple nationally recognized organizations where they have, extra training, because there's no license in California to be a home inspector. So get somebody who's got the extra training, who's a member of one of those organizations, and have them come out and look at your property and maybe point out some of the health and safety items and things that you guys can be doing around the house as well. So let's just jump into one of my favorites that I saw this week. It was, or not this week, but this year. This was a little bit before the 4th of July. So check this one out.
Oh, Sparky.
So this is actually underneath the sink.
Oh my gosh.
So you see water stains there, right? And so you see the water stains, and you see the sparks, and what that is from that's from turning on the garbage disposal. So every time you flip the switch to the garbage disposal, what is happening is it's arcing across that box. You get anything flammable in it can go. You get water in there because that's not a GFCI outlet. That's not ground fault circuit interrupted. So if all of a sudden you got a puddle of water in there, you're standing in that puddle of water, you're donezo. So, and this person had no clue that this was even going on, which blows my mind. So you guys definitely want to be just kind of walking into the house as you're rolling through. There are certain things you can easily see. I always look under the sinks. My clients are interested in that house, I'm popping under the sinks. I'm looking for water stains. I'm looking for current leaks. I'm looking for what type of plumbing's there. And we're going to cover plumbing another week. But I also look at the electrical when it's in the kitchen. So, when you walk through a house, we're going to talk about the 5 things. We're going to break them up over the 5 weeks. One of the first things we're looking at outside is the roof and the plumbing. When we get in, one of the key things I'm looking for are there dual, plugs, or are there grounded plugs? So I don't know where actually we have 80 pictures, I think, for you today, but the one without a ground somehow slipped out of here. So if you only have these 2 vertical slots, it means you're in an ungrounded system. So back in the 50s, 60s, they didn't use ground wires. Now it's code. You need it. Anything with a motor has to have a ground with it. And if it's in a water area or considered a wet area, it needs to be GFCI protected. And now in newer homes, all the bedrooms and a bunch of other areas also have to be what's called arc fault circuit interrupted. So if there's an arc like that was going on in that garbage disposal, it'll trip the breaker and keep you safe. So if you guys see scorching like this is indicative of, either a bad connection, and so it's sparking and arcing, or an overloaded circuit. So you want to make sure you're looking into any time you see something like this, scorches and burns on that property. Also, walk up and check out your electric panel. If there's any sub panels, you want to flip open that cover and look and see what's going on. This property here it's nuts. They actually had an extension cord run out of this, and it was going over and powering their spa. So it needs to be in conduit. It needs to be protected. This is definitely a no-no. And that's something that, you're going to know right off the bat. Hey, we're going to have to do some electrical upgrades on this house to keep it safe for us. Here again,
Sub-panel.
We'll get to the other one that's kind of out of order. But so this one here, in a condominium, when you have your home inspection, you need to ask your inspector if they can pull off that front panel. You want to be able to see inside of that panel. A lot of times the inspectors aren't allowed to do what's called destructive inspections. They can't open walls. And if they've got something like this where it's painted shut around the edges, they can't pull that panel off and actually look inside it. So lucky me, I'm willing to go in and get it done. And where did that go? I don't think that one ended up in our queue. But so you want to make sure, and this is definitely one of the ones that'll pop into condos regularly, is it's painted over. So let the listing agent know that you need them to cut around it and have that available to open so you can check out inside. Here's unit here. You had 4 different units. You've got all these breakers. This is a man-made aftermarket cover panel, dead cover panel. It's not safe. You want to be looking at this. You don't want big openings in there where you can get your fingers in. Kids start going in there playing with it and stuff like that. Inside this one, that was that 4-plex again with 4. You saw the cover on it. You have jumper cables in here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but those are car jumper cables taking the power off of this unit and taking the power over to this unit. So they're literally stealing power from their neighbor in this scenario. So we had a client wanted to look in a 4-plex. We kind of walked around, looked at the panel. Panel is pretty trashed. You've got, nuts and splices inside the panel box. Definitely not allowed to have. And on top of it, you got somebody jacking power with car rated jumper cables, which are not rated for this amount of load. And it even looks like, I think there was like a kink in the wire. I mean, this is definitely a fire hazard.
And it's a danger to kids, to anybody that gets in there. I mean, this is just,
absolutely. There's a splice wire right there. You can see it cut.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. This is not good. When you see this is something where you're gonna have to buy a new panel. And a new panel, on these, you're buying, it's gonna run $400 or $500, if not more, for the panel, and then the actual labor is what really costs you money, right? So yeah, that's just to take that in consideration when you're actually writing an offer. Like, okay, and who knows if the wiring at the panel looks that bad, you might have to rewire the entire house. Yep. Now you're looking at $4,000 to $12,000, depending on how many runs. If they're grounded,
absolutely, great point, Troy.
There's just a lot going on here. So yeah, some of you out there in a hot market will gamble your money, meaning that you'll say, okay, I got to get into a home, so I need to do what it takes to get into it. Then when I'll get the home inspection report, which I'm going to probably spend anywhere from $400 to $500, I'm going to figure out at that point how bad the panel and the runs are, and that's what you're gambling on. Now, a lot of you out there, it really doesn't make sense to say, okay, well, the house is, going for $450 and I only want to offer $450 because of the panel. There's going to be someone out there that doesn't have a good real estate agent that's not going to give them this information. That's not even going to look under the panel, and they're going to be going up. They're going to be bidding, 5% higher than the list price, and those people will then be wasting hundreds, and up to thousands of dollars if they, especially if they're releasing their contingencies and doing a appraisal at the same time. So take that in consideration. You want to, if you're looking at a house and it's tipping which way you want to go, whether you want to write an offer or not, the 5 things that we go over are the most 5 expensive items in which you'll run into if you have an issue after you purchase the house or down the road. And you want to know prior to actually purchasing that house, those 5 things are solid. You're not going to have that rainy day fund just get drained, and then you're, refinancing the house and pulling money out or whatever to get those, to take care of one of these 5 things.
That's a great point, Troy. I tell my clients sometimes we're going in looking at properties, and I'll call out some of these items and I say, hey, look, this is going to pop up on the inspection. That's going to pop up on the inspection. That's going to pop up on the inspection. But the other buyers looking at this house don't know that. So if you still want this house, we still need to bid accordingly. And then when we get that inspection, then we can try and claw back on price. Like, oh, we didn't know that the panel was Ensco panel with aluminum wiring, and it was going to have to be all replaced and the whole house rewired, So, we kind of have those strategy conversations of, at the end of the day, we can't go look at 40 homes because all 40 homes, and then write them all off because there's something wrong with each one. Because every single house is going to have something that doesn't meet code, that isn't, updated and things like that, especially at the entry level market. So our conversation is, hey, is this still a good fit for you? And if so, what do we need to do to get us into escrow and then hopefully claw back on some of these issues through repairs? But I also want to keep them, posted on, these are things that the seller still might say no and not give you any credit towards. And then we do have to walk. So it's all about, kind of going the back and forth there.
Yeah. You see this run.
Yep.
I mean, literally run. I mean, is that ground wires coming out of the box?
So yeah. So what you got here, these is fuses. So these are the old school fuses. I remember I had a cabin growing up and the fuse would blow and you'd have to go out, and these are basically like a light bulb base. It's a twist in copper metal base, with the center plug. The power goes through one side, out the other, and there's a little metal filament in there, and it blows out if the load is too high. So this is very outdated. You need to put in a modern circuit breaker panel, especially nowadays. I mean, you've got 6 circuits here, it looks like, maybe 8 total. You want to make sure that you've got enough circuits so that every time you turn on the microwave and somebody's watching TV, it doesn't blow out all of your power in your house. So, and it didn't roll through. In this one here, you want to make sure that you got the insides of your panels as well. So this one, I believe, was for the AC. Somebody had stripped it out. And that's one of those conversations. Hey, you've got an AC sitting over there, but there's no electrical wiring to it because somebody jacked the copper wiring on.
Next, Ryan.
And here you go, too. So your electric panel, this one here has got multiple things going on. This is a Zinsco panel. We'll get into that here in a second. But you can't have any wire ties inside the panel. You don't want to see these crimp connections and stuff like this. These saddle over. It's just, this is all outdated. High likelihood of issues. As you're going to see here in this next video, there are 3 panels that you want to be looking at.
Let me ask you this, Ryan. Let's take a look at this. You're walking with your client. You're a real estate agent. And if you guys are out there with your real estate agent, you walk up and you see this panel. What timeline, obviously you can ask for some type of repair or compensation, on a request for repair. But if the seller denies you, and in this hot market, what would you tell your client? What would you say to them? Hey, what's the timeline that you need to replace this, and how much would that cost?
So this one here, sooner than later. I would plan on it in the first 6 months to add a whole new panel. If you're just doing a panel, I've got a couple electricians we work with. It's about $2,200 to take this, old school panel out, put in a new 200 amp panel with stucco patch, with permits, everything. The average cost there is $2,200. So the cool thing is once you get that new panel in there, then like you're talking about, Troy, if you've got ungrounded runs or, you need to rewire the house, you can at least grow into the panel. You've got the extra breaker spots for it. Maybe you go and do a kitchen remodel after you've got that new panel, and then you run all new wire from the kitchen and all the new 8 circuits you need for your kitchen to be the current code. You run it into your new box so you can grow into the box. So I regularly recommending to people, hey, look, wiring's been there since the 50s. It looks solid. It might not be all grounded. Let's do grounded runs to where you're going to have your TV and all your sensitive electronics and some of the health and safety items. But let's just put in the panel now. And then when you go to, the bathroom remodel you're talking about doing in 4 years, then that's when you upgrade that electrical and run new wire back to the panel so you can grow into it. Some people don't have the budget to do it all right now, but you don't want that to deter you from buying a great house, because the truth is the next one you go to might have the exact same or worse issues. You got to remember, a lot of these outdated panels and recalled panels, they were some of the most used panels out there. So I can't find a week that I'm not seeing a recalled panel or aluminum wiring or ungrounded runs, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, and now obviously we also talk amperage. 100 amps is the minimum you want to see on there, and then 200 is more of a modern, size box with enough electricity to go through it. Is anyone out there? We'd love for you to post what you feel or what your electric box is, or do you even know it? So if you just go ahead and comment here, whether you know your box or not, and then whether the information we're giving you is information in which is going to actually get you up off the couch or the chair, and then take a look at it tomorrow, and then comment on what you have. We'd love to hear you back to know what kind of panel you have, and if you do have if you do are have questions or even issues you think you're going to have with it, go ahead. You can talk to the real estate agent if it's something that you're in escrow with. But if you already have it and you're a homeowner, go ahead. You can actually DM us or shoot us over a picture of it, and we can kind of give you an analysis of it. Ryan is a contractor, and so he has a contractor's license. He's not just shooting off his hip and over 10 years of experience of panels and looking at panels and having this analysis. So
that's a really good point, Troy. Yeah. So if you guys are out there, if you guys have any electrical questions, shoot them out to us. Hopefully we can answer them. But yeah, we highly recommend you go out, look at your panel. One of the clients we're working with right now, we were going through a house, and she said, I want to make sure that there's no knob and tube, that all of the wiring is up to date, because my parents who are moving in with us because their house just burned down from an electrical fire. So, it does happen. You need to be aware. You need to be smart about it. And I do recommend, getting an inspection. Here's one of the inspectors we work with a lot, talking just about these Zensco panels right here.
Electric service panel. It has a makeshift dead front cover on it with this huge opening. You don't want openings in the panel cover. Reason being is that kids stick their fingers in there and they can get electrocuted. Also, there's a 60 amp main breaker. The minimum required right now is 100 amp. And the brand of the panel is Zensco brand panel. There's a website I like to refer to. It's called ismypanelsafe.com. There's only 3 panels on there: the old Fuse panels, Federal Pacific Electric panels, and Zensco panels.
So there you go. It's a lot of what Troy was talking about. Minimum you want, 100 amp, and Zensco, that thing was 60 amp right there. They had a homemade dead cover on it. You want to make sure that you've got the factory cover on there, if at all possible. And if you are, going to have to make one so that you've got that dead front cover, it's nice and tight and isn't touching anything. Doesn't leave gaps along the middle or the edges. Here's one here. This gets called out a lot. This is another one of those panels on the ismypanelsafe.com. This is the Federal Pacific Stab Lock. So you can kind of see here, there's 2 things called out on this. Panel's actually all right. You shouldn't have any open slots here. There's plastic connectors just like this right here. This should be popped in there. So again, it helps keep all the breakers in their right spots, and it doesn't allow people to plug around there. And like Troy likes to talk the story about, what'd you find in one of the panels flying around in there?
We've seen like beehive in them, especially if you don't have a panel cover, which you should always have a panel cover just for the safety reasons of having kids or anyone going back there. But I saw a whole beehive that they had just eradicated earlier that day, and it just was in there still completely. It was pretty disgusting.
Yep. So here are some of the newer panels and stuff that you'll see. Is you can see here this blue button. It says AFCI test. What's interesting here is this blue button style for this manufacturer here. The Siemens, I believe, was a recalled one. That's what they were calling out there. Obviously, I don't expect you to look inside the panel on all of these, but even with the dead cover on, you can see if the breakers are newer, where they're AFCI and GFCI and meet the 2014 code. And a lot of times, if they've done a remodel to part of the house, some of those breakers will be upgraded. Obviously, the inspector will look at other things. They'll look at the type of wire. This here is copper. They'll look and see if it's aluminum. If you have aluminum wiring, you need to make sure that you don't connect it to copper. There are certain breakers that you have to use for aluminum contact, and there's certain connectors you use if you are going to connect it to copper before you pigtail it to an outlet or something like that. So if you have a house and you've got aluminum wiring, I know home inspectors that have houses with aluminum wiring. It's not the end of the world. You got to remember that a lot of the Edison feeds and the electrical utility companies feeds coming in, they use aluminum. It's cheaper wire, it conducts very well, but it'll expand and contract differently with different metals, and so you can't have it directly with copper because it'll start corrosion between the 2 dissimilar metals, and when they get hot, they'll expand and contract at different rates. And the wire nuts and things that they're tied to will actually get loosened, and then you start getting arcing, sparking, and then you have the fire risk. So if you have aluminum wiring, you just want to make sure that you're using the proper connectors and you're using the proper method implemented. So that's a key thing. But in my eyes, it's not a deal killer. I would be more than happy to have a home with aluminum wiring as long as it's dealt with properly. Here, they'll look also this whole breaker here, this 100 amp breaker, it's a little hard to see, but it is completely burned and scorched here. So this house was using a lot more electricity than the 100 amp was really made for. This should have been, this house with all the remodels and stuff they did and the circuits they added, they should have had a 200 amp panel in here. They were trying to run it through the 100 and the breaker wasn't even breaking. It was actually scorching and melting the breaker because the panel was getting so hot. You can also see that happen even if it's a right match. If the breakers aren't connecting hard and they have a good connection to the bus bar back here, then you'll start seeing the same thing arcing and heat build up because it's actually a bad connection. So this is one of the things that inspector is looking for. That's why we say this is no, change out for actually having a professional third-party home inspector come into this house and look thoroughly. When Troy and I are walking through, we're looking at these homes, we're looking for a little bit of everything. We were looking for like, hey, what's the curb appeal? What are the school districts? Does this really meet your needs and wants? What do we see that, we like about the house or don't like about the house? And we're also looking at these 5 things. But at the end of the day, you want an inspector who's not being disrupted, who's going through their checklist, room by room, area by area, and checking for every last little thing. And it's very important because there's so much that's actually going on. You also want to make sure that all of your breakers are properly identified so that if there is an issue, you can quickly go out and turn them off. We see that called out all the time where things aren't properly called out. Here you go, more open panels, just big hazards on a lot of these. Again, no dead panel. You've got 200 amps and all these wires are fully exposed. There's just so many health and safety issues. This one here is interesting. It's got solar breaker, and this is on a Zinsco panel. One of the ones that's more, has higher amount of issues with it, sparking, arcing, and things like that. The solar company, if they don't feel the panel safe, they'll actually normally do a full panel change out prior to installing the solar. So I always recommend to people, if you're going to be getting solar on your home anytime in the next, few years, hold off on getting a new panel and paying for a new panel, because SunPower, a lot of the bigger companies, they give you a price for that solar, and if it needs a panel, they'll do the panel upgrade for free. When I did my solar, I got a free panel with it. I had a Federal Pacific stab lock. They said, hey, this ain't gonna work. It's 125 amp. We need more power rolling through here. We need more breaker slots. Boom, free. It was the exact same price they quoted me before they even looked at the panel. So that's something to keep in mind, because you might be able to get yourself a free panel by doing your solar. So kind of inside of that panel. Here's just a smaller panel. Again, you want to make sure they're not undersized. More fuse panels, our favorite. And here's a pretty good, panel. It's using up a lot of slots, but you still have some open slots, 125 amp. This is a decent panel. It's not on the recall list. These are things we're looking for. This is something I'd like to see in a house, if it's in the 60s or 70s, because that it's most likely going to be reliable for you. Here's a couple that aren't going to be so reliable. This one here, you've got old school cloth Romex.
Stucco patch.
In the stucco, you've got wires coming out, open. You've got this overhead feeds to the garage. There was like a multiple levels of safety issues going all through that video there. So there's a bunch of no-nos. If you have nowadays, you need an underground feed coming from your house to your garage, and you need a sub panel. A lot of these older homes out there, they don't have that. So that's one of the things you're going to want to look for. One of the other things I look at is
Ryan here with House Heroes with a quick real estate tip of the day. Make sure you are looking at that electric panel.
This one here looks like it might be, fairly large based on the size. You pop it open. It is an older Federal Pacific stab lock. Like that. These are highly recalled, have known to have a lot of issues with it. You're going to want to swap this out. A lot of insurance companies don't want to be insuring with that panel. So if they know about it, they'll either charge you a lot more or mandate that it actually gets replaced. If you have any questions, please comment, message us below, and follow us for more real estate tips of the day here at the House Heroes. Thanks and have a great day. Yeah, there's another one there too. Here's just roll through a couple more of these and roll two. So here's another one. Here's another Zinsco panel with solar on it. One of the things that we've seen some of our clients do, Troy and I will carry these in our car if there's questions. You can use a tester. You can pop it in the outlet. It tells you, if you have both yellow lights on, it's correct. If you've got a red, and a yellow, you've got a neutral reverse or hot and neutral reversed. the smaller plug, when you see the outlet, the smaller plug is your hot, the little bit larger vertical plug is your neutral, and then you've got your ground, the circle down below. So sometimes the hot and the neutral are reversed. On a lot of things, it doesn't matter, but on sensitive electronics, it really does matter. Sometimes people will even get them swapped in the middle of the, in a junction box or something like that. And so the neutral shouldn't be hot. You want to be able to touch a neutral and not get electrocuted. Sometimes there's backfeeding on and things like that. And that is a larger electrical issue. You got to go in and you've got to start pulling apart circuits and tracing them and things like that. But these simple testers will let you know if things are looking good or not. But they won't tell you the whole story, because sometimes they'll show up that you're correct. You've got a ground and things like that. But when you look in the panel, or the inspector looks in the panel, and he say, there's actually not any ground wires here. So they're taking a ground off of something else. Maybe it's a water pipe or something like that. So not 100% indicative of what's going on, but it'll tell you if at least your hot neutrals are correct and if there's a ground. Plus, I like this style here with the red button in the middle, because if you press that red button, if it's a circuit that's in a wet area, either outside or in a garage or in a bathroom or laundry kitchen, it'll trip the GFCI. If it's in an area which should have that ground fault circuit interrupter protection, and you push that button and you don't hear a trip, then you know that needs to be upgraded. In these wet areas, the GFCI, those are the ones with the little push buttons, the test and reset. What those do are, let's say, you've got a blender and it's next to the sink, you got a bunch of water in and you're blending some stuff, and all of a sudden the blender falls in the sink and you reach in to grab it. Well, there's all that wire in there, there's electrical, you can electrocute yourself. The GFCI sees that that alternating current isn't coming out of the hot and all making its way back to the neutral. It sees that some of that electricity is disappearing somewhere else. Shouldn't be. And so it instantly trips the breaker, because it's not going into neutral going out through that ground. Worst case, it's going through your body. And so it'll actually see that the electricity is coming from that hot into that ground of the water, and it'll trip it for you. So that's a huge safety issue. You want to make sure you're using those. Like this one here, you only have one light on. You've got the reverse or open neutral.
So if I put that tester into this particular plug, Ryan,
right here,
yeah, what would happen?
Well, nothing on this one because it's been cut off. But I like this because I think there was rodents coming through.
I think it just
there was
melted.
cockroaches coming through, and so they put foam all around it. It was nuts. But
That's
expansion
foam.
Yeah. So in this is a test, retest, or test and reset button. But this is one that if you put that tester in and you click that red button, you should hear the pop, and then you should have to push the reset back in to get that thing working. So, and here's kind of example. This one here, I'm pushing the button here, the red, and it's not tripping. And you can see this is in a kitchen. You've got the tile backsplash all nice, but it's not properly protected. So that's something that you're going to want to make sure you do. A GFCI outlet, they're $10-15. Most handyman or electricians will put them in somewhere between $60 and $80. Especially if you're doing a bunch of them, it's going to be cheaper because they're already out there. But that's something I always recommend that the clients upgrade right away, because it's easy, it's cheap, and then you have that. Sometimes you'll notice as you're walking around junctions, outside of boxes. Again, any junction and splice like this should be in a protected box. If it's not, it's something you're going to want to have addressed. Health and safety items, you should be having covers over all of this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's in the attic, where you're not going to see it, but you don't want something like this to end up happening. So this was in a light fixture where there's some water. Again, this is outside. Got moisture and water and these wire nuts. Those should all be in a sealed box with a cover on it. So when you're walking around and you see stuff like that, you know that you got a weekend warrior out there, Mickey Mouse and this stuff together. So you just want to be aware that there's probably a lot of other issues with that house that are very similar to this.
This is what the electric nightmare segment
absolutely.
of our live.
Yeah. You got any shout outs over there, Troy?
Oh, I have a few. Yes, I have Noche. How you doing, Lily Vang? How's it going? Thank you for joining us tonight. How about you, Ryan?
I just want to say what's up to Lasane. What's up? Haven't seen Lasani in a long time on here. So hopefully your new home is doing well. and you and your family are doing well. Actually, I've seen some photos on Facebook. You guys are doing great. So Carlos Esparza says, I'm building brand new, but this isn't great info. Thanks, Carlos. If you guys know anybody else who's not building new, who might benefit from this, please share this with them. Also, we're going to have these in series on our YouTube. So please go to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe to us there as well. That way you get updated as soon as we have more videos coming out. And here you go. Here's the Rat's Nest Video Award right here, Troy.
Yes. We have several of these different pictures of just again, a weekend warrior who went out there and instead of hiring a professional, he decided, well, let's just cut a few things here. Let's just roll them up together, and whatever works. Yep. Right? So unfortunately, when you as a real estate agent, and if you have your real estate agent as well, you want to actually go over this with them, right? And they want to go and go over what actually does it take to get this repaired. This is kind of a nightmare. Some stuff's in the tubing, some stuff's not in the tubing. Probably half of this stuff has been cut, and instead of just rolled up and thrown away and then replaced, what they did was just left it up there, and they just rerouted everything.
Yep.
And it just turns into a mess. Let's just call it a mess. Go ahead to the next slide, Ryan. Same thing. I don't even know. I think electric spider actually put this one together. I'm not sure what's happening on this. It looks like there's telephone wire, cable wire, electrical wire, plumbing, you name it. It just got thrown up here. Nothing is really, there's nothing labeled, but more importantly, it's just not organized. And this is it's something that, even though if you look up here, it looks like it just was put up here. That looks like, new boards and everything. So
and here's another one.
Wow, it's an outlet.
Wire just sticking. It looks like a snake coming out of a snake charmer's box here.
Yeah.
Another cloth Romex wire coming out. And then you've got your mast. So you want to make sure you got a lower and a higher mast here. The mast height matters. You want to make sure that, I believe it's roughly 4 feet overhead. And so when you've got some of these older homes, they're too short. And then as you saw in one of the last videos, if you're not taking care of the roof, they can actually start to break out. Some of the other things that are going to be lurking in there, you might have, improperly sized connectors holding wires together. This was a ceiling fan that all of a sudden stopped working. Obviously, home inspector is not going to be able to see stuff like that. But when you start to see things stop working, that's when you want to reach out to a professional, because this whole nut slipped off because it was too big for these wires. And those wires were live within that fan. And as it rotated, it was because this was light. So the fan was still rotating and having those wires flip around and start tripping the breaker. So again, you need to have proper covers. Things need to be properly mounted. And then you want to make sure that somebody hasn't stolen your solar.
I was going to say,
this is what happens.
It's a surf rack
when your solar gets repoed. Let's look at this one.
That's like,
where'd the wires go? Where'd the racks go?
Wow, that's actually a repo.
That's
crazy.
They popped the solar off. You stop making those lease payments, they're gonna come and get it. So. I think, and then there's one more video that you wanted to play, Troy. Actually, I do one on the Bulldog panel here too. So this is one of the other.
All right, so here we've got an old Bulldog Pushmatic panel. These are known to, stick and not trip properly. Definitely want to upgrade that, especially when you've only got 4 circuits for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Circuits running to that.
And
This
here's
panel
one
has no
last
room
one.
for it. None of it's been touched or upgraded. So I know within 100% certainty this work was done without permits, and somebody's going to have to come in and rip that open and do it right.
Love it. That one looked like it cut off a little short. That was the one with your panel and all of the permit stuff.
right.
I don't know. Maybe we got the wrong one on that one, but
Well, very cool.
yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Next week, we're going to have everything in regards to your heater and AC, what you need to be looking at. Again, these are things you can visibly tell by walking around the property. So with the electric today, when you walk through the property, look at the outlets, check and see if you've got 2-prong outlets or if you've got the 3-prong grounded outlets. Walk through the kitchen, see if you've got that little test or reset button, if it's visible in the kitchen or the bathroom. If it's not visible, it doesn't mean it's not protected. Newer circuits have those protections in the panel. And sometimes, all bathrooms are protected by one of the bathrooms, or maybe there's an outside plug that covers one of the bathrooms. So some of those are actually in connected circuits. You can have one GFI circuit that protects a bunch of other outlets down the road. So you won't know unless you're using one of those testers, but just visibly look, see if there's any of those GFCIs anywhere, and then walk out. Make sure take your agent with you, go outside, ask where the, electric panel is, have them open up that panel if it's not screwed shut, and look and see, what's the brand, ask them what the brand is, ask them if they see anything that jumps out at them, take a picture. If you're curious, shoot it to us. If we don't know, which we should, we can get it to one of our inspectors and give you a little rundown before you guys go ahead and write an offer. But again, this is not, an excuse for getting a professional home inspection. You still want to do that. But these are simple things that you can look at while you're walking around the house and see if there's going to be electrical issues right off the bat. Especially some of those open junction boxes, Romex wire run every which way. Those are just telltale signs that things were Mickey Moused and they were done unprofessionally. You're going to want to make sure that you keep that in mind before you write that offer. You got these big plans for doing a huge remodel for the kitchen or the bathroom, and all of a sudden you spend your entire budget doing your new. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Troy, you got any parting words for us?
We're in a 5-part series. That's the very first part. When you're out there with your real estate agent, make sure you look at the 5 things that you can actually visually see that are the most expensive if you have to replace or repair. Obviously, tonight we did electrical, and the next week we're going to do AC and the furnace. So your heating and your cooling elements, you can see those. And then we're going to show you what actually you look for to see if you need to be replaced or you're in a good condition and you don't have to, look down the road before you even think about replacing them. You also have the roof, you have foundation. Those are all obviously in the plumbing. Are the other 3? We're going to, again, a 5-part series here. We'll definitely see you next week on the AC and the furnace.
Yep. And if you're following us on YouTube, go ahead and just click below and the next one will start playing.
Yep.
Thank you guys. Take care and God bless.